All right, it looks like we are live. Hi, everybody. Nice to see y'all today. Dr. Lori here. So today I am going to be diving in specifically to talk to students who go to University of Arizona. I have some slides for you all. Let me get that shared. All right, there we go. So I am going to share something with you guys. We work very closely with the University of Arizona, specifically the chemistry courses there. That's where I went to grad school. I got my PhD from the chem department at U of A. So we're intimately familiar with the department and with the courses, and we work very closely with the students to support them in their courses. And because of all of our experience working with them, we have really put together sort of a compilation of some of the mistakes and some of the best practices that we've noticed based on sort of what we've seen really works for the students. And that's what I want to share with you today. So I'd like to talk to you about what I call the Chem Excellence Method. So first off, really we're going to dive into how to make sure that you're getting an A in your chemistry course at the University of Arizona. This really is designed for students or parents who are taking chemistry at the University of Arizona. This is very specific to U of A. If you want to earn an A in your class and you don't want to spend the semester feeling stressed out and feeling overwhelmed in order to get there, this is for you. If you're prepared to make sure that you're giving yourself the best possible opportunity for success and you're looking for expert guidance with proven results, then you're in the right spot. Just imagine going into your semester, next semester, walking into your exams with confidence because you know that you're prepared for success, engaging in the class lectures because you actually understand what's going on. You're not just being a seat warmer in your classes. You have very little stress, you have very little uncertainty around studying because you know what to do and you know that if you do this thing, then you will be successful. You're earning the grades that you want, the grades that you're working for, and you're spending your time efficiently. So that even means that you can include relaxation and self-care in your routine. Sounds pretty great, right?
I'm so excited. I got 100. I think it was on either unit 2 or unit 3, but it was really, really awesome.
So this is Heather, one of our students. She's talking about her second semester chemistry course. She got 100% on one of her exams. Another student, 241B, that's second semester OChem, so a class that has its own reputation of being very, very challenging, got an A, 97% on chemistry exam, 92.5 on the chem final, the final exam in the entire course. Final went really well, got an A in chemistry.
What'd you get on the final exam? A 98?
97.
97% on the final exam, which
That's amazing.
is amazing.
Amazing, right? 97% on the final exam, 96% on the exam, 100 on multiple choice, 93% on the free response, which is what Gradescope is, got an A in chem. So this type of success is completely possible, and I'm happy to share it with you. So let's make an agreement. I promise I will share with you in this training really the 3 steps you need that all of those students that had those results I just showed you were going through in order to get that type of result in your chemistry class. And in turn, I just ask that you actually take action on what I share with you. You can either share this video if you're the parent watching. Maybe you can share this with your student to make sure that they have some tools going into the semester. Or if you're the student, you can implement the steps that I'm showing going into your semester, going into your class. And then at the end, I'll show you, if you're interested, how you can get everything I go over customized specifically for yourself, if that's something you're interested in. So think about either, if you're not a freshman, your experiences in the past few semesters, or if you are a freshman, think about if you had this in high school, if you've ever maybe studied for hours and hours and hours only to make a bad grade. That doesn't reflect the time and the effort that you put into your class. Or maybe you do okay on one exam and then you fail the next exam. So your results aren't consistent. Maybe you go to office hours, but you're still just not able to bring up your grade. And during class, you're daydreaming because you don't have any idea what's going on. And so you're unable to really pay attention and follow with the lecture. And overall, it leaves you feeling stressed out, anxious, or overwhelmed. That doesn't have to be your experience in your chemistry class. Really, you're just missing 3 things that I like to call the Chem Excellence Method. A little bit about me and how I know this. My name is Dr. Lori Culberson. I'm the founder of STEM Excellence Tutoring Company. I have a PhD in chemistry from the University of Arizona, and I've worked with over 200 students just in the U of A chemistry classes. I also have over 20 years of teaching experience, and I'm intimately familiar with the U of A chemistry department due to my connection and my experience working with the department. So I've personally designed our STEM Excellence Method, our Chem Excellence Method, after years of proven results with U of A chemistry students. After all the experience I've had working with students, there are a few things that I've noticed that are really common mistakes students tend to repeat, and that's what causes them to struggle. One of them is trying to go at it alone. One comparison I really like to make for students is your chemistry class could be compared to climbing Mount Everest. So imagine you're trying to climb this huge mountain, Mount Everest, and you're trying to navigate through all of the twists and turns. You're trying to figure out where to even begin, which pathway to take by yourself. You wouldn't do that, right? If you're going to do something like climbing Mount Everest, you're going to go with a team, you're going to go with a guide. You're definitely not going to try to do it by yourself. And your chemistry class, your hardest classes should not be any different. Your hardest classes, you want to have a team supporting you. You want to have some people who kind of know the way, pointing out what's going to be a little bit more successful. So don't try to go at it alone. There's no use making it harder than it has to be. There are no trophies for doing it the hard way. Another mistake that we see is students only rely on their professor. Your professors are amazing. They are your first resources, and they are a great resource for you. But you are one of several hundred students in this class. And then on top of that, almost all professors are teaching multiple sections and multiple different courses. So you're one of hundreds, maybe even thousands of students that they're seeing. So there's no way they can be personally invested in your class just due to the sheer volume of students that they see. Office hours get packed because there are so many students who need help. So it's really difficult to get targeted explanations and sort of support that really addresses exactly what you need from office hours. And so your professors, as amazing as they are, they really can only do so much. So sometimes, especially if you're struggling, you need to go beyond just your professors. Another mistake I see is students insist on being in person. And, in person can be very powerful, but it's not the only tool. And some of the best tools out there actually exist online. There's been a lot of advantages in technology over the last few years. And in-person doesn't necessarily utilize those. One thing that's great about things that are online is there's the opportunity to record things. And that way you can go back and you can review what you've seen, what you've heard, or what you've learned again. And initially in the session, you don't have to worry about writing down everything. You can actually spend your time engaging, and then you can go back to the recording afterwards instead of having to see what's in your notes and make sure that you write everything down exactly correctly, right? Also, if you're on Zoom, everybody's in the front row. There is no hiding in the back. Everybody's face is front and center. So it's really easy to engage and make sure that everybody's really paying attention. Another thing that I see, another mistake I see students making is relying on student tutors. So things like the Think Tank at U of A, it's a really great resource, but preceptors, TAs, think tanks, tutors, they're students. They don't actually have teaching qualifications. The way to become a tutor at the think tank or a preceptor is to just do very well in the class. And just because you personally do very well in a class doesn't mean you necessarily know how to teach somebody else to do very well in the class, especially if they've been struggling. It's really not uncommon for them to get some of the questions or some of the more difficult concepts incorrect. We've actually had instances where we've had kind of unlearn and correct things that students have learned from other student tutors. And, you know, in order to make those high A's on your exams and high A's on your final, you really need a pretty in-depth understanding, a comprehensive understanding of everything. And those in-depth explanations really only come from an expert understanding of the material. So, without further delay, now you know what mistakes to avoid. Let's talk about what to do now that you know what not to do. Let's dive into what I call the Chem Excellence method. So, really, in order to be successful, there are 3 things you need to come together. Your teacher is going to give you the strategy. Your teacher is going to teach you the material. But that only gives you a starting point. And if you're only relying on just that, it's not going to be enough for those high A's. You also need the right habits and the right environment for that strategy to flourish. So if your goal is to graduate with a good GPA, you want to maybe go to medical school, you want to get a high paying job, you want to secure some sort of competitive internship, you want to become an engineer at a top engineering firm, regardless, you really want this prestigious future for yourself, you cannot afford to leave it to chance. So make sure you've got your pen and your paper. Let's dive into the Chem Excellence method. The first part, you've got to prepare. So let's think about the Olympics. The Olympics are going on right now. I love the Olympics, so I have a lot of Olympic analogies. Let's talk about swimming in the Olympics. Imagine someone going to swim their race and they jump in without warming up their body first. And they dive in without a plan for how they're going to execute the race. They're definitely not going to win, right? Most students approach studying the exact same way. They don't really think about how they're going to study. They just dive in and start doing it. How are you going to win if that's how you start? So the same way that an Olympic athlete, an Olympic swimmer has to warm up their body, they have to prepare their mindset, and they also have to have a plan of how they're going to execute a race, a student needs to have a plan of how they're going to execute their studying. They need to make sure that before they start studying, they have the correct mindset. They are able to focus and actually maximize their time as they're going through and studying. So you want to think about how you're going to study before you actually begin studying. So if you want to become, like I said, a lot of Olympic analogies, right? If you want to become the gold medalist of your chemistry class, don't jump in cold. Define your goals, prepare your mindset, make sure that you actually have a plan of how you're going to study. The second part is maybe one of my favorite things. I like to call it previewing. So let's think about a maze, right? Most students, whenever they go into their lecture, you're introduced to a bunch of different concepts and they're all woven together, kind of like a maze, kind of like a matrix, right? Generally, most students, when they sit in a lecture, that's the first time they're seeing the material. So you're trying to follow this complex matrix and maze of all these new concepts without ever having seen it before. You're pretty much setting yourself up to get lost. What if you could have sort of a guide that gives you an overview of what you're going to see before you are in lecture? You're going to get so much more value from it, right? You're going to have a much smaller chance of getting lost. And if you do get lost, you'll have other things that you can recognize as grounding points to help you re-engage with what's going on with the lecture. So you want to make sure that you are maximizing your time with your professor in lecture by seeing the material before you actually go to your lecture. It's going to help you follow along with the instructor. It's going to help you pick up on any gold nuggets and hints that your professor is giving you because you actually understand what they're talking about. And you're really going to be able to pay attention and pick up on details. The last part, you have to practice. But not just any type of practice. You want to make sure it's the right kind. So let's talk about golf. Whenever a golfer goes to a new course, they take the time to go through that course before the competition, right? Imagine a golfer trying to win a competition without ever having played on the course before. Unheard of, right? But most students, either they don't practice enough, or when they go to the exam, they are expected to do something perfectly in order to get an A that they've never even tried before. So the same way the golfer gets to a course early to go through and make sure they understand the course, a student needs to, before going into the exam, make sure that they're practicing problems that are similar to what they're actually going to see on the exam. And then obviously, the more you practice, the better you're going to perform. So practice does make perfect, but it's the right kind of practice. You want to make sure you're practicing the right types of questions that you're going to see on your exam to really prepare you for that experience. So that's our Chem Excellence method. First, you've got to prepare. Don't just dive into studying cold. Make sure that you actually have a plan of what you're going to do. Second, preview the material before you go to lecture. Really maximize your time that you're already spending sitting there. Make sure you're getting the most out of it. And then lastly, practice, 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 but it has to be the right kind of practice that's going to actually correspond to better results on your exams. So here's what some of our students have had to say. Alexandra said last semester, I was averaging C's and D's, and I just aced my first exam this semester with a 97. Monique said coming here was the best possible thing I could have done for my grade. Lori is an amazing tutor who is determined to make her students succeed. She knows the ins and outs of the U of A chemistry department. Without her, I would be failing. She makes even the most complex concepts easy to understand. 11 out of 10, recommend. And then Megan says she gives a full overview of concepts in ways that are easy to understand, as well as practice problems that prepare you for exams. I would recommend Lori and STEM Excellence to anyone. So congratulations on making it this far in our training today. I'm going to remind you of that agreement we had at the beginning. At the start, I asked you that if I show you these 3 steps that really help you master these chemistry classes, you would agree to take action. So if you are interested, well, first, I guess you do have 2 choices. One, you can take this information and try to implement it on your own. And that very well may work for some students. You may be extremely successful, but then also it may not quite work for you because you're trying to do something on your own that you're unfamiliar with. So, if you want to really make sure that you are extremely successful in your chemistry class, you've got as much support as possible. You're giving yourself the best chance of success so that you can be proud of those exams, go into make that prestigious future. Then I've opened my calendar over the next couple of weeks to be able to take some calls with students and parents who are interested in having a little bit of extra support for their chemistry classes. We can take a look at how you're feeling going into the class, what your history is in terms of exams and support and success. And, we can kind of make some advising about what might be the best fit for you. So if you're interested in having a chat with me, I'd be happy to have take some time and talk to you. Here is a link to my calendar. I also will put this link in the chat, and you can go ahead and get a session scheduled with me. And I am excited to speak with you soon. I will stay on for another couple of minutes in case anybody has any questions. You can go ahead and put it in the chat. Let me put that link back up. And let me pull it up to put it in the chat real quick. All right, there it is in the chat. All right, so hopefully I will be talking to some of you all soon. Hopefully you got some great advice from that training. You got some valuable things that you can take into this semester and try to implement for yourself, or you can share with your student if you're the parent and encourage them to implement it throughout the semester. And I look forward to chatting with some of you all soon.